When my son told me I wouldn't be welcome at his house this Christmas, part of me wanted to laugh at the irony, while the rest simmered quietly. After a moment of silence, I just smiled, stepped out of the car, and made a call. Within just a few days, the mortgage payments I had faithfully sent for 5 years were cancelled. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment revenge, but the first step in a plan to reclaim justice and teach a lesson to arrogance. There was no reason left to keep holding back. I had sacrificed and paid so Michael and his wife could live in the comfort I funded. But now, I was no longer someone they could take advantage of. Every dollar I sent, every curtain, every hardwood floor, every piece of furniture, each was proof of my dedication. And now, that dedication would be seen in a way they never expected. I knew this decision would cause waves, but it would also reveal the truth. They would have to face the consequences of their disregard and bullying, and I, for the first time in years, felt the power of my own strength. This wasn't revenge, but protecting myself and claiming what I rightfully deserved. If you've ever felt used or looked down on in your family, this story will show you how to stand up smartly, decisively, and with dignity. Watch until the end of the video, because what I do next will make them never forget and might inspire you in similar situations. That moment is still etched deeply in my mind. Michael stood in front of me, his shoulders tensed, eyes avoiding mine, whispering words that froze my heart. "Dad, you shouldn't come to my house this Christmas." I blinked, forced to smile, but inside a storm was raging. Every detail in my son's house reminded me of years of sacrifice, the silk curtains I bought when Isabella complained about privacy, the hardwood floors paid off with a second loan, every piece of furniture I chose before he developed his own taste, all bearing my mark. And now, all of that seemed meaningless, as the person I once trusted and loved no longer saw me as part of the family. I took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, gripped the steering wheel tight, and thought about the past 5 years. $800 a month, nearly $140,000 in total, all for Michael and Isabella's mortgage. Maria, my wife, would be upset if she knew I had to feel this way. But now I know what I have to do. I dialed the number, and within minutes, the payment cancellation was confirmed. That feeling, both a relief and a surge of power. Finally, I stood tall, no longer a man being taken advantage of. Back home, I walked around the room, looking at every object, every memory. The fire in the fireplace crackled, warm light that couldn't soothe the simmering anger inside. I lifted my whiskey glass, looked at Maria's photo on the mantel, and took a sip. The taste of freedom spread down my throat, mixed with feelings of sadness and resolve. This isn't revenge, but protecting myself and reclaiming lost power. I know this action won't go unnoticed. Michael will realize, Isabella will be angry, and Isabella's parents, who've always looked down on me, will be put in an awkward position. But I don't care anymore. I've endured enough, and now it's time for the truth to come out. Fear, hurt, and helplessness suddenly turned into motivation. I dug through files, bank statements, sent invoices, every piece of evidence of 5 years of sacrifice. Each page was proof of the dedication they dismissed. And now, it would become my strength. I packed the documents into a bag, double-checked every detail, and planned my next move. And while everyone thought I would stay silent, I knew this was just the beginning of a plan they'd never forget. No more hesitation, no more submission. I would confront, expose the truth, and force them to face the consequences. The next morning, winter sunlight filtered through the windows, but inside me, there was no warmth. I sat at the dining table, staring at the phone left on the surface, breathing steady, but my mind in chaos. Michael called several times, but I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my inbox, went through messages and notes about the past 5 years, every dollar, Every invoice, every gift was proof of a sacrifice they never appreciated. What I heard from Michael yesterday, from his hesitant tone, avoidance, to how Isabella and her family silently excluded me from Christmas, all intertwined into a sharp dagger piercing my heart. I used to believe that, no matter what, my son would understand and respect the sacrifices I made. But in reality, he was led, convinced that I no longer mattered. That first feeling of betrayal, deep and painful, made me hesitate for a moment. I remember back when Maria was alive, she always reminded me that family is the most precious thing. Yet now, Michael and Isabella have disregarded all of that. 5 years of working tirelessly, paying off the mortgage so they could live comfortably. And now, they push me out as if I don't exist. I put my hand on the cabinet door, looking at family photos where I stood beside Michael during past holidays. Those faces now are just shadows, distant and cold. A feeling of anger and emptiness washed over me. I stood up and walked around the house, every step heavy. I used to spoil Michael, paying every expense so he wouldn't have to worry. I endured, compromised to keep the family peace. And now, all that's left is lies and betrayal. That first betrayal didn't come from a single word, but from a series of actions: deception, concealment, excluding me from important moments. I know that if I stay stuck in this pain, everything will only get worse. That resentment turned into determination, into a will to act. I gathered the documents, bank statements, invoices, and receipts. Everything was organized carefully, no detail missed. This will be the evidence for the whole family, and most importantly, Michael, to see the truth. I remember when Michael texted me saying I just needed to adapt to Isabella's family. Adapt. For the past 5 years, I have adapted far too much. I turned my home into a place where they felt comfortable, paid all the expenses, and stayed silent when disrespected. Now adapting is no longer an option. I have to stand tall, and this first betrayal will be the catalyst for the steps to come. The light from the fireplace cast shadows on the papers on the table, clearly showing every number, every payment, every date. I looked at them as if seeing myself from 5 years ago, a kind, self-sacrificing man who was easily taken advantage of. But now, I am different. I won't let Michael, Isabella, or anyone else underestimate me again. After that first betrayal, I realized it wasn't just about Christmas being ignored or payments being dismissed. I started watching, tracking every detail in Michael and Isabella's daily lives. What once seemed normal now revealed their true faces: greed, deceit, and careful calculations to hide the profits they took from me. That morning, when I stopped by the grocery store, my eyes accidentally caught a new shirt on the shelf. It was exactly the same shirt Isabella had bought with the money I sent to pay the electricity bill, a purchase I didn't even know she intended to make. My heart burned not because of the material thing, but because the dishonesty had become a habit. Back home, I checked the bank notifications again, reviewing every old statement, every transferred amount, every small bill. Every gift that seemed like love suddenly appeared as a map leading me to the truth about their attitude and schemes. Michael, my son, was no longer the child clinging to me, but had been led by Isabella, step by step hiding the truth, asserting control, turning me into an outsider in my own family. I remembered Isabella's insistence that I don't fit in her family. Words shallow, but full of contempt. I used to endure, smile to keep the peace, but now the truth was clear. I realized their masks had fallen, and I couldn't overlook it anymore. That afternoon, Michael came by, wearing a worried face and unfinished apologies. But even in those eyes, I saw signs of hesitation, of hiding part of the truth. "Dad, I want to explain about yesterday," he began, but I raised my hand, signaling him to stop. I've heard too many explanations, too many empty promises. New actions, new attitudes will prove everything. I stood up, opened the file cabinet, and took out documents, bank statements, receipts, invoices, and photos from social media. I placed each paper in front of Michael and Isabella. My eyes locked on them. Silence filled the room, broken only by the rustling of paper. I had hoped Michael would realize on his own, but now I had to show them clear, undeniable evidence. Michael looked at the papers, then his gaze dropped, his face pale. Isabella, once confident, now looked confused, as if her perfect mask had just been stripped away in front of everyone. I spoke, my voice low but firm. This is the truth. For the past 5 years, every expense, every gift, every comfort you've enjoyed, bears my mark. And now, I will no longer serve the lies you live by. The atmosphere grew heavy. Part of me wanted to hear what they would say. Part of me wanted them silent, to face themselves. Confused. Tense expressions appeared. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. Isabella kept biting her lip, trying to find an explanation. But I knew it was just a last-ditch cover. I continued slowly. Each word weighted. You've hidden the truth, deceived everyone around you, and made me the villain. This is the moment the mask falls. I've seen it all. And now you must face the consequences of your actions. Michael sighed, voice trembling. Dad, I didn't know they... I raised my hand to cut him off. There's nothing left to explain. Your actions have said it all. Isabella winced, trying to intervene. But I no longer cared. Everything was now clear betrayal, deceit, all laid bare before us. I knew this was just the beginning. The evidence in my hands was the foundation for Michael and Isabella to recognize their mistakes, to feel the consequences of years spent disregarding me. The first betrayal now became a guiding light for the steps ahead. Justice, power, and dignity would be reclaimed. That afternoon, the emptiness in my house was so quiet that even breath echoed. I sat at my desk, holding the bank statement, staring at the monthly numbers. Every penny I sent to Michael and Isabella. They danced before my eyes like a cruel reminder. 5 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was all disregarded. I recalled the nights spent talking with Michael, telling him about the days Maria and I struggled to pay debts and keep the family stable. Now Michael has forgotten it all. His eyes were empty, as if I were a stranger standing in his own home. Isabella, who always acted elegant, now showed clear arrogance, deliberately ignoring my presence at important occasions. I sifted through messages, unfulfilled promises, and times he avoided me at events. Every detail felt like a knife cutting into my heart. I sacrificed too much, only to receive deceit and contempt in return. A deep shame spread through me, but it didn't break me. Instead, it sharpened my resolve. I couldn't allow them to keep disrespecting me. In the following days, I watched Michael and Isabella's behavior closely. Every gesture, every word was carefully analyzed. Michael avoided my gaze, but I saw the fear in his eyes, fear of the truth slowly coming to light. Isabella tried to maintain her elegant facade, but subtle schemes and social tricks began to show calculating, fake, and small lies to hide the benefits they once received from me. I remembered the afternoons quietly counting money, bills, and gifts I had sent to my son. Each time I looked back, I realized Michael and Isabella never really saw me as family. They saw me as a tool for their personal gain, for shopping, for maintaining a perfect image in front of others. That humiliation was many times worse than the first time I realized I was excluded from Christmas. I stood up, walked around the house, lifted each photo in the living room, looking at the happy family moments, now just fading memories. I thought of Maria, remembered the old days, and felt the pain of loss and betrayal clearer than ever. This was no longer about money, but about respect and fairness. Night falls. I sit by the fireplace, spreading out papers, bills, and bank statements in front of me. I begin to make a plan, not driven by impulsive emotions, but with the clear mind of someone who built a career from nothing. Every action, every word of Michael and Isabella has been recorded and organized like evidence for a silent trial. Once again, I look at Michael, my son, and realize this deep shame is the motivation to change everything. I will no longer be the one led around, no longer silently enduring contempt. I will take back control, reclaim the respect I deserve. The next moves are carefully calculated timing, evidence, the way to make them face the truth, to strip away every lie and fake mask before their eyes and those around them. I know that when the plan is complete, Michael and Isabella won't be able to pretend anymore. The initial shame will become the catalyst for justice and order. The next morning, sunlight filters through the curtains but fails to ease the tension inside me. Yesterday's events remain vivid. Michael avoiding my gaze, Isabella busy preparing the Christmas party I wasn't invited to, and in my mind, the numbers, the money I've spent over the past 5 years. I sit at the kitchen table, holding an old newspaper, sipping hot coffee. Every detail is carefully recorded, from payments and bills to small gifts, all telling the story of silent sacrifices no one noticed. I recall how Isabella once bragged about the luxury items I paid for, the trips Michael demanded, and how they covered up all my efforts with feigned indifference. What boils my blood isn't just the money, but how they hide the truth, making everyone believe in a perfect image built on lies. I started reviewing the records, bank statements, and old messages again. The pieces slowly came together. Isabella and Michael didn't just see me as a source of money. They dragged those around them into a web of lies, hiding the fact that they had depended on me for years. Photos printed from social media, every party, every gift, every expensive decoration proved one thing: everything they owned and flaunted bore my mark. But when all the evidence was laid out side by side, the truth couldn't be concealed. I realized this was the time for them to face the truth, for every lie to be exposed. I flipped through each bank statement, carefully noting every transaction. Each number was a reminder I had been used, betrayed, but now it was time to take back control. I knew it wouldn't be through anger or threats, but through evidence, accuracy, and meticulousness. Every preparation had to be perfect, every detail calculated so that when the moment to reveal the truth came, no one could deny it. Besides that, I noticed Michael still didn't fully understand what had happened. He still looked at me hesitantly, sometimes confused, sometimes afraid. I didn't intend to punish him, but he had to see the consequences of indifference and deceit. Isabella was different. Her eyes were always calculating, but no one knew how many years she had hidden the truth, living off my money and kindness. I began making a detailed plan: the invoices. The evidence would be arranged by year, by month, by expense. I prepared everything so that anyone at that party would have to see the truth. The atmosphere in my house grew tense, not from laughter or music, but from my heartbeat pounding with determination. This was the time for the lies to be uncovered. I called some close relatives, not to reveal the plan, just to verify important details. Every piece of information was confirmed. Every piece of evidence cross-checked. I felt the power of meticulous preparation. The next 3 days would be decisive. All truths would be revealed, and every fake mask would fall. In the afternoon, I watched Michael and Isabella from afar, observing every action, every gesture. Isabella still appeared elegant, but her clenched hands showed her tension. Michael avoided my gaze, but it was clear he noticed the change in my attitude. I smiled gently, said nothing, but inside, my determination only grew stronger. I prepared a light dinner for myself, drank a cup of hot tea, and listened to every sound in the house. Everything seemed normal, but the truth was quietly being set in motion, step by step, moving closer to the moment they could no longer escape. I knew that when the party started and all the evidence was presented, Michael and Isabella would have no way to deny it, and everyone would see the truth about the years I silently sacrificed. I put all the evidence into a briefcase, ready to bring it to the Christmas dinner they invited everyone to attend. Every page, every photo, every receipt was a reminder the truth would be exposed, and justice, though slow, would come. And just as I was about to leave the house, a gentle joy filled my heart, not because I would take revenge, but because, finally, I reclaimed control of my life and the respect I deserved. On Christmas night, the twinkling lights from Isabella's decorated tree illuminated the living room. But it no longer felt warm to me. My heart pounded hard, each beat reminding me that this was the night for the truth to be revealed, and all my years of sacrifice would be proven. I prepared a thick briefcase containing bank statements, receipts, photos, and evidence showing that I had paid in full for the house and all the amenities their family was enjoying. I stood at the door, took a deep breath, and stepped into the living room where 12 guests sat around the table. Isabella was smiling politely. Michael nervously looked at me through the tree's light, while Cody and Catherine seemed about to explode at my unexpected arrival. I placed the briefcase on the table, my voice clear. "Good evening, everyone. I hope you don't mind me joining the Christmas dinner tonight, but perhaps this is the right moment for everyone to understand who really contributed to this party and this house." A silence followed. Isabella took a quiet breath, trying to stay calm, while Michael bowed his head, clearly embarrassed. I began opening the briefcase, pulling out the first set of documents and placing them in front of the guests. These are bank statements, 60 months of payments for the house you're living in, totaling $168,000 just for the mortgage. In addition, here are the bills for kitchen upgrades, furniture, and every shopping receipt I've paid for over the past 5 years. I said calmly but firmly. Faces gradually paled. An older guest carefully read the statements, hands trembling. "This is unbelievable." He covered everything. I nodded, continuing to reveal printed social media photos, vacations, and expensive gifts Isabella had shown off. What you see online, the vacations, the parties, all bear my footprint. Not money from your jobs, but from my sacrifice, I emphasized. Michael looked at me, eyes brimming with tears, speechless. Isabella lowered her head, lips pressed tight. Cody and Catherine were confused, trying to find an explanation but failing. I then handed out printed articles by Patricia Morrison, where they fabricated that I was cruelly abandoning an elderly person at the airport. I placed them beside the bank statements and photo evidence. "You created a story that I'm heartless, but here is the truth. All the evidence points to me as the one who nurtured, supported, and kept your lives stable for the past 5 years. This truth you can no longer deny." I continued, slowly, but without missing a detail. "Michael, do you see now? What I did was to keep the family together, to make sure you never lacked anything. But you all underestimated me, even slandering me in front of everyone. All eyes were on me, while all the pretense and polite smiles vanished before the clear evidence." I placed down the final statement, confident that every guest had seen the whole story clearly. "Now you understand why I no longer attend Christmas parties, why I'm no longer the family's financial source and personal driver. This is the result of you taking advantage of my kindness and hiding the truth," I said firmly. Michael broke down crying, his sobs soft, but his eyes had changed, filled with remorse and clear awareness of what had happened. Isabella lowered her head, unable to say a word. Cody and Catherine looked down, realizing their plan had completely failed. I stood up gently. No yelling, no threats needed. The evidence spoke for itself. From now on, everything will be seen for what it truly is. No more lies, no more exploitation. You must take responsibility for your actions, I emphasized. The guests slowly began to understand the bigger picture. The fake smiles, the lies, the subtle schemes of Isabella and her family all were exposed in the light of truth. I knew this was a moment they would never forget, a lesson in fairness and accountability. I closed the folder, stepped away from the table, and looked at Michael now. Michael, you see everything clearly. Any relationship that wants to survive must be built on respect and transparency. If you want a relationship with me, let's start over. Isabella and her parents stood frozen, realizing their defeat. Everything was silent, but I knew that from this moment on, the truth had won, and I would no longer be deceived or exploited for another day. With every step carefully planned, every detail precise, I turned the Christmas party into a lesson in justice, where those who once underestimated me now had to face the truth. I smiled, took a sip of whiskey, feeling a rare peace after years of sacrifice. The next morning, the atmosphere in my house was unusually quiet. I enjoy a hot cup of coffee, looking out at the garden where gentle snowflakes fall like a reminder that Christmas still lingers. But for Isabella's family, everything has changed forever. The phone is silent. No urgent calls, no messages demanding attention. I smile softly, knowing that last night's lesson left a deep mark. 3 days later, Michael finally called. His voice trembled, heavy with the realization of the mistakes he had made. "Dad, we need to talk," Michael blurted out. I picked up, invited him in, and in my eyes, a clear change appeared. This was no longer the son controlled by his wife and her family, but someone who recognized the truth and his faults. Sitting down, Michael lowered his head, eyes red-rimmed. "Dad, I didn't know anything about the article." "I don't understand. It was all arranged by Isabella's parents." I'm sorry, Dad." "For the past 5 years, everything you've had was based on my money and sacrifice. But now, the truth is out. The money is gone, but the lesson remains. I chose them over you, and now I feel like I've lost everything." "Michael, you haven't lost me. You gave me away." "But that's not a loss. It's an opportunity to truly understand the value of family and respect." Outside, dry leaves swirled in the wind, reminding me of the time that had passed, of Maria and the years I had devoted to you. But now, I can move forward with calm and determination. Michael looked up, his eyes flickering with faint hope. "Dad, is there anything I can do to make things right?" I smiled, my tone gentle but firm. Making things right doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. You have to understand that respect and honesty are the foundation of every relationship. If you want our relationship to survive, you have to rebuild it from scratch, with actions, not words. He took a deep breath. Quietly, "I understand." "Dad, I'll start over. I promise I won't let things go wrong again." I nodded, knowing this promise was the first step in relearning the lesson about true value. I stood up and took out from the kitchen cabinet the files I had prepared since Christmas Eve. The documents, invoices, and bank statements remained intact, reminding me that the past cannot be changed, but the future can be shaped. A week later, the debt notice sent to Michael and Isabella arrived by mail, along with a late payment warning. $8,400 had to be paid within 14 days, or they would face legal action over the house I once helped them buy. I read the letter calmly, no longer feeling anger or regret. This was a fair consequence for their disrespect and deceit. The next day, Michael showed up at my door. Tired face, pleading eyes. "Dad, we need to talk. I want to do the right thing. Dad." I opened the door and invited him in. "I want to do the right thing. Dad." I opened the door and invited him in. This time, there was no tension or pretense, only a serious and quiet atmosphere. We sat down, and I looked him straight in the eyes. "Michael, from now on, every decision you make must be based on respect and transparency. No more hiding or relying on me. You've seen the consequences of disregarding the sacrifices I made for our family." I smiled, firmly holding his hand. "Exactly. This is how you learn the true value of family, and money can never replace respect. Everything else, you'll have to handle on your own." The distance between father and son was somewhat healed. I knew the lesson about fairness, respect, and self-worth was deeply ingrained in Michael, while Isabella and her parents would face the consequences of their dishonesty. The Christmas Eve lesson was not just about canceling payments, but a testament to decisiveness, wisdom, and justice in protecting oneself and what's right. I sighed, raised my glass of whiskey, savoring the rare, peaceful moment after years of unacknowledged sacrifice. And you, if you're watching this story, remember that every sacrifice deserves respect. Share your thoughts about the story and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories about wisdom, justice, and facing betrayal in the family. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in my house became unusually light and calm. Every morning, I wake up, take a sip of hot coffee, look out at the garden where sunlight filters through the leaves, and feel a rare sense of peace after years of being controlled by my son's family and Isabella. All conflicts, all tensions seem to have faded away, making room for fresh air where I can live for myself without feeling exploited or disrespected. The debt notice still lies on the table, reminding me of the consequences of deceit and lack of respect. Michael has realized this, his face thoughtful, his eyes no longer filled with arrogance or false pride. This time, he understands that money cannot replace love, respect, and trust between father and son. I quietly observe every action he takes, down to the smallest gestures. He rearranges the house, cares for every little detail, not because he is forced to, but because he understands the value of responsibility and fairness. I see trust being restored little by little, not through words but through actions. The other family members, Isabella and her parents, now have to face the consequences of their own actions. Urgent calls, desperate messages, and legal notices make them realize that deceit and arrogance always come at a price. There is no more leniency, no second chances to avoid responsibility. This is a lesson in fairness, wisdom, and the real consequences of unethical behavior. I sit by the window, looking out at the street where I once walked, burdened and frustrated. Everything is now peaceful, so quiet that I can even feel my own breath. Freedom is the sweetest and most precious feeling. Freedom from unreasonable demands, from being exploited, and freedom to live my own life without carrying others' burdens. Michael enters the room, holding the documents needed to adjust the house according to his own means. His eyes look at me with genuine respect. "Dad, I won't let things happen like before. I'll take care of everything myself and behave properly." You have to understand that respect and honesty are the foundation of every relationship. Everything else you have to handle yourself. No one can bribe or control you anymore, not even me. No more pressure or pretense, only genuine feelings strengthened by awareness and responsibility. Michael learned that money can't buy respect, and respect must be earned through actions and sincerity. In the following days, I focused more on myself. I cleaned, rearranged the house, tended the garden, and enjoyed my favorite meals without worrying about anyone else. Life became more balanced, free from the invisible pressures of debt or unreasonable demands. I felt my mental health recovering, and my heart lightened, as if freed from 5 years of futile sacrifice. One afternoon, Rosa messaged Sunday dinner. "The kids want to show you their school project." I smiled and replied, "Wouldn't miss it. This is a real family, where I'm welcomed, and smiles are genuine, not based on interest or obligation." People need to know that sometimes to regain respect, you don't have to destroy others, you just need to stand firm and let justice take its course. I learned that self-control and wisdom protect you from those who would exploit you, and at the same time open the door to truly valuable relationships. Christmas Day passed peacefully, without constraints, without feeling pushed aside. I drank a glass of whiskey, looked up at the winter sky, savoring the freedom I had reclaimed. Every breath reminded me that justice will come, and those who stand firm in their beliefs will never suffer unfairly. And if you're listening to this story, remember, respecting yourself and holding on to your values is the most important thing, no matter what others think. Share your thoughts on this story and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories about wisdom, justice, and facing betrayal within families. In the days after Christmas, I began to realize that my life was no longer controlled by the needs and expectations of others. No more monthly bank checks to see where the money disappeared. No more urgent calls demanding I serve my son's family and Isabella. I'm free, and this freedom tastes strangely sweet, a feeling I had long forgotten. Every morning, I wake up peacefully, take a sip of hot coffee, and watch the morning light streaming through the window. The little house has become warm in its own way, not because loans or debts have been paid off, but because I feel a sense of peace within my own heart. Freedom is the most precious gift, and I reclaimed it through determination, wisdom, and patience. I began to systematically reorganize my life. The tasks I had been putting off, repairing the roof, repainting the walls, checking the electrical system, are now being completed step by step. Each time I finish something, I feel a part of the burden lift away. No one can control or take advantage of me anymore. No more unreasonable demands wearing me down. Every action, no matter how small, brings a sense of achievement and autonomy. A simple happiness I had never experienced before. On Sunday, Rosa and the kids came to visit. I looked at my children, their school projects, their drawings, the stories they told, and for the first time in years, I felt that family truly is a place where you are genuinely welcomed, not based on benefits or pressure. Their smiles and bright eyes were proof of the real joy I had missed for so long. I also spent time rebuilding my relationship with Michael, but this time on a foundation of respect and equality, without abuse or unreasonable expectations. We sat down together, talked about past mistakes, what needed to be done to rebuild our lives, and most importantly, how to keep our father-son bond strong without relying on money or outside interference. I taught Michael that love can't be bought. It can only be built through actions and sincerity. Once, in the past, I paid, worried, and carried everything for my son's family. But in return, I received disrespect and harsh words. Now, I want him to understand that a person's worth is measured by how they treat others, not by the money they earn or spend. At the same time, I reconnected with old friends and neighbors who had witnessed my struggles over the years and now saw me standing strong again. We talked and enjoyed simple meals together, filled with laughter. You don't need fancy houses or expensive decorations. True joy comes from genuine sharing and the presence of people you cherish. My work was also reorganized. I no longer took on projects that overwhelmed me, but focused on what truly brought value, both financially and spiritually. I learned to enjoy each day, each moment, without worrying about those who didn't appreciate me. One evening, sitting by the fireplace with a small glass of wine, I reflected on everything that had passed the years of being taken advantage of, the financial mistakes made for others, and the pain I endured. But now, all of it has become valuable lessons. I realized that a person's worth isn't about giving blindly, but knowing how to give properly, to those who deserve it. With Michael, I decided to set clear principles: respect, transparency, and accountability. No more unreasonable expectations or pressure to please anyone. If he wants a relationship with me, he has to build it from scratch with sincerity, respect, and concrete actions. Rosa and the kids became my emotional support. We shared small meals, strolled through the park, and talked about simple things I had missed before. I realized that family isn't about sacrifice, but about being welcomed and loved for who you truly are. On the last night of the year, I sat on the porch, gazing at the starry sky. The cold wind blew, but my heart was warmer than ever. I learned that fairness, respect, and self-control are the foundation of true happiness, and no one has the right to take that away from me. If you're listening to this story, remember, dare to stand up for yourself, dare to set boundaries, and dare to choose the right people in your life. That's how you build a life worth living. You can also share your story, learn from others' experiences, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch stories about wisdom, fairness, and family relationships, where every lesson holds practical value and deep emotion. In the weeks after Christmas, and after Michael realized the truth, I began to arrange everything around me more carefully. No more abused funds, no more urgent calls or unreasonable demands. I have time to reflect on myself, to fix what needs fixing, and especially to rebuild the values I once missed in life. I started by organizing my personal finances. Without the regular monthly transfers to pay for Michael and Isabella's house, I took time to calculate, plan, and even consider investing in myself. The numbers are no longer a burden, but proof of my independence and control over my own life. I buy what I need for myself, but carefully consider every expense, no longer influenced by others' expectations. I also began restoring neglected relationships: Rosa and the kids, the family who always cared for me, now becoming a true source of motivation and joy. We prepare meals together, share simple but meaningful conversations, from walks in the park to stories about the kids' learning and creativity. I realized that family is truly where you are welcomed and loved for who you are, not for what you can pay or the services you provide. With Michael, I set clear and firm boundaries. Our father-son relationship is now built on respect and transparency, no longer dependent on money or outside pressure. I teach him that affection and trust can't be bought with money. They must be built through actions, sincerity, and genuine care. Michael started to realize that in those past years, I sacrificed too much for Isabella's and her family's facade without receiving any respect in return. During those days, I also renovated my own house. The roof, walls, windows, every little corner was carefully attended to. No longer worrying about loans or repairs for others, everything now is for myself. The house became warm and lively, reflecting the new man I'm building, an independent, strong man who knows how to protect his own rights. I spend time planting small flowers around the garden, caring for them every day. Blooming flowers not only beautify the living space, but also symbolize recovery, new beginnings, and hope in life. I've learned that, just like caring for plants, rebuilding life requires patience, attention to detail, and dedication. You can't rush or force it. Everything needs time and understanding. One afternoon, sitting on the porch sipping coffee, I reflected on the years gone by. I remembered the times of unconditional sacrifice, the money I gave away but received nothing back except contempt and pressure. But now, all of it has become valuable lessons that helped me better understand my worth and how to choose those who truly deserve to be in my life. I smiled, feeling an indescribable relief. I also started planning personal projects I had long dreamed of, but never had the time to pursue. I rediscovered my passion for painting, read books I had missed, and wrote the stories I wanted to tell. Every action, no matter how small, gave me a sense of control and freedom, something I had never fully experienced before. Most importantly, I realized that family isn't just about blood relations, but those who respect and love you for who you truly are. Michael understands this now, and together we're building a new relationship without pressure or expectations, only sincerity and mutual trust. I realized that although it took years to learn this lesson, I'm now strong enough to protect myself from getting hurt. With Isabella, Cody, and Catherine, they've faced the consequences of their actions, and I no longer feel anger or resentment. Everything ended fairly, I defended my rights, set new boundaries, and those undeserving no longer affect my life. Instead of focusing on resentment, I invest my energy in those who truly appreciate me, which brings deeper happiness than any money or power ever could. In the days that followed, I continued maintaining a balanced and joyful life, where I could do what I wanted and spend time on hobbies, friends, and those who genuinely love me. I learned how to say no to unreasonable demands, how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, and how to choose relationships that truly add value. I realized that my worth is not measured by how much I serve others, but by how well I protect my own respect and happiness. It's self-control and the ability to make smart decisions that helped me regain control of my life. And that's the lesson I want to share with anyone feeling used or abandoned within their own family. Finally, I smiled as I looked out at the garden, where flowers were blooming and the sunset light cast a peaceful, perfect scene. I picked up the phone and sent a message to Rosa saying I would come to Sunday dinner with the kids. A real family, where I am welcomed and loved, has become part of my life. And I know that living each day with respect and autonomy is a victory. If you're hearing this story, remember that standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, and choosing the right people to have around you is the only way to live fully. These lessons aren't just for family. They apply to all the relationships around you. Ask yourself, who are you spending your time, effort, and heart on? Who truly values you? And if you haven't found that yet, don't hesitate to start over, just like I did. And if this story touches you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to hear more stories about wisdom, justice, and how to protect yourself in challenging relationships. Every story holds valuable lessons that will help you realize your true worth. 3 months have passed since I canceled the mortgage payments for Michael and Isabella. Each day that passes proves that arrogance and greed come with a price. Letters from the bank arrived, notifying me of outstanding debts. There's no longer any way to hide or avoid it. $400 for 3 months of late payments, with a 14-day deadline to pay, or else foreclosure proceedings will begin. I set the letter aside, took a sip of coffee, feeling both satisfied and relieved swelling in my chest. Isabella kept calling. Michael kept ringing the doorbell, but I didn't answer. Silence is power. Cody and Catherine, once confident in their social status, are now just shadows of people exposed. They tried to contact me, begged, threatened, but I was ready for everything. The weight made me tell myself justice must be carried out properly, with intelligence and a subtle plan, not with violence or threats. On the 97th day since that phone call, Michael appeared at my doorstep. The man who was once full of confidence now stood there in a wrinkled suit, a tired face, messy hair, and cheap cologne, trying to mask his failure. He stood there, trembling, whispering, "Dad, I need to talk." I opened the door, stepped aside to let him in, observing all the changes. New furnishings, freshly painted walls. Everything bought with the money I set aside for myself. Now all proof of my independence and power. "It's beautiful," Michael said softly, eyes scanning around, as if seeing me for the first time as an adult making my own decisions. "It's the result of spending on myself instead of others," I replied. Sitting down and taking a sip of coffee, he bowed his head, eyes moist. "Dad, I'm sorry for everything. Christmas, the media, Isabella, how we—" I listened without interrupting. We sat in silence, weighed down by 5 years of sacrifices that had been exploited. I looked at Michael and realized that at this point, apologies mattered less than his awakening to the value of respect and responsibility. I said, "Michael, you haven't lost your father, sir. You just handed him over to someone else. There's a difference between losing and giving away." He raised his head, a tear rolling down, realizing my kindness wasn't to be abused, and everything must be built on respect and sincerity. I guided him through each lesson. No more allowance, no more privileges from my sacrifices. He had to take responsibility, find a job, manage his expenses, and learn to appreciate family for real. I emphasized, "If you want to continue your relationship with me, you have to rebuild it from the ground up, with respect, not with entitlement or demands." Michael nodded slowly. For the first time, I saw him understand that respect isn't earned through privileges or favoritism, but through proper actions and attitude. We don't need hatred or resentment, just to learn to respect each other. Then he left. I stepped into the backyard, breathed in the fresh spring air, feeling each budding leaf and the warm sunlight shining on my face. In a few months, I'll turn 63, and I realize I'm no longer drained by those who don't appreciate me. Maria has been gone for 8 years, but I won't waste another minute on people who don't value sacrifice. A message from Rosa came through, inviting me to Sunday dinner. I smiled and replied, "I'll definitely be there. This is what family really means. People who want me around for who I am, not for money or status. Everything else is just a fake stage, and I've stopped buying tickets to plays I don't belong in." That night, I sat in my chair, sipped good whiskey, looked out at the sky, knowing fairness was restored, my dignity reclaimed, and the future bright and fresh was mine. If you find this story inspiring about self-respect and standing up for yourself and your family, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're lessons in perseverance and wisdom in every relationship.